a violinist who wants to learn or expand your knowledge around music theory, then keep watching. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher currently based in New Jersey. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have both my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm a Suzuki trained teacher. Music theory is an incredibly vast topic, so much so that people will get advanced degrees studying it. As someone who's taken 8 years of music theory courses myself, I understand what elements are essential for violinists and what's just kind of cool to know. In this video, I'll be sharing the 5 most important elements of music theory for violinists to master. Element 1 is what I'm calling the basics, and this is essentially just how to read music. This includes everything from reading the actual notes to things like dynamic markings and musical symbols like accents or crescendos. It's also very helpful to know how to read bass clef. If you are interested in performing any sort of chordal analysis on your music, which, spoiler alert, is the 5th topic, then you will need to know how to read bass clef. So to read bass clef from bottom to top, the lines are G, B, D, F, A, good boys do fine always, and the spaces are A, C, E, G, all cows eat grass. I personally, as a violinist, read it in a little bit of a different way. Whatever the note looks like, I know it's just a third above that. So take, for example, the note that's on the very bottom line of the staff. Us as violinists, we would read that as an E, but that is actually a G in bass clef. So I just go one line up, and that's how I figure out my bass clef notes. I know it's not the most kosher way of reading it, but hey, it's what works for me. And if it can work for you too, then I'm happy to share. The second element is intervals. So intervals are how far apart the notes are from each other, the distance between the notes. And if I had to say one element that I thought was the most important for violinists to understand, it would be intervals. There are 12 different types of intervals that all have a very unique sound. And if you understand how each type of interval sounds, it will greatly help your ear and your intonation. You've probably heard the term perfect pitch before, right? It's when someone can just hear a note and know what that is. And you might be thinking that is the only way or the best way to know if your notes are in tune. But that's actually not true at all. You do not need to have perfect pitch. I don't have perfect pitch, but you do need to have a relative pitch. Relative pitch is all about hearing how the notes relate to each other, aka hearing the intervals between the notes. So if you can hear and recognize each interval very clearly, your intonation will improve greatly. Element number 3 is scales. There are several types of scales, including major scales, 3 types of minor scales, chromatic scales, pentatonic scales, whole tone scales, and each scale has its own pattern of half and whole steps, which is how the key signature is dictated or how the notes are dictated. So for example, major scales pattern is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So if you take the note D and you apply this pattern, you'll go D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, half step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, whole step to C sharp, and half step to D. That gives you 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, which guess what is the key signature of D major. You might have heard of this cool thing called the circle of fifths. That's essentially just a way to help you remember the keys and their key signatures. So scales are super important to practice on their own because they can really help you hone and refine every aspect of your technique. But scales often appear in pieces, and when you can recognize those scales, it makes learning your pieces much easier. Element number 4 is chords. So chords are essentially made up of 3 to 4 notes that are stacked in thirds. There are 4 different types of chords: major chords, which is a major third and a minor third; minor chords, which are a minor third and a major third; augmented chords, which are 2 major thirds; and diminished chords, which are 2 minor thirds. As violinists, we play arpeggios, and if you are an intermediate or advanced violinist, you most likely have played the arpeggio sequence that appears in both the Barber books and the Flesh books. This is essentially just broken chords. When you can hear how these chords sound, not only will it help you with your intonation, but it will also help you with your phrasing. In general, we want to lean into dissonant chords, meaning we want to bring out those chords that sound a little bit wrong. And we want to back away from consonant chords. We want to back away from the ones that sound beautiful or right. And when you can recognize those chords within your music, that will tell you how you need to phrase it. The fifth and final element is chordal analysis. So chordal analysis is the act of recognizing chords in music and analyzing them. So each note within the scale has a chord attached to it, and that comes with a specific number as well. So again, if you're in the key of D, the D F sharp A chord, the chord built on D, is the 1 chord. The next chord built on E is the 2 chord. The next chord built on F sharp is the 3 chord, and so on. Analyzing chords and realizing figured basses is a big majority of what I did in my time in theory class, and I don't necessarily think that you have to do that to become a great violinist. However, if you did want to analyze the chords in your pieces, that will greatly inform your phrasing. So that was just a brief introduction to the 5 most important elements of music theory. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, I have an entire course dedicated to it called Music Theory for Musicians. There are 60 lessons comprised of video tutorials as well as handy charts and oral and written exercises. I dive deep into each one of these topics that I brought up today and give you information and videos and charts that you can continue to reference for the rest of your career. There's also 10 pages of exercises that will help you put what you learned into practice. If you're interested in checking that out, link is in the description and you can use the code YouTube for 20% off. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments, and thank you for watching.